All right, sports fans, thanks for tuning into the Press Box. We got another Friday night show coming up talking about sports here locally. My name's Jeff Richardson, and I'll be your host. I'm going to be joined by the usual Ty Reynolds, our analyst, and we have a guest tonight, Jeff Cole. Nice to see you.
Good to see you.
Thanks for coming aboard with us. Before we get the show rolling, I'm going to go ahead and give out the phone number. It's 873-6713. I know you guys are probably poised by the phone, ready to dial it, but we're going to start off with the Bulldogs, Ty. Let's go ahead and talk about Garrison Hurst.
Well, I don't know how this knee injury is going to affect his future right now. Personally, I think Garrison's got a lot of decisions to make. First of all, he's got to figure out how much money he might lose because obviously his value in the draft is going to go down. But what really amazed me was seeing in the paper where there might be some type of option where he might come back to the university. And can you imagine being a defensive coordinator, just picking up the paper and just reading, hey, Garrison Hurst might be coming back. I mean, you know, I see him sitting on the toilet in the near future. That would sit there and cause me to worry a little bit.
Unfortunately, I don't think there's much chance of the NCAA letting him back in. Do you, Jeff?
No, I don't believe he'll be able to get back in. I think he had his chance, and basically, you know, they gave him a 4-year scholarship. He went ahead and took his 3 years and said, I'm going to cut out early. You know, why should they let him back in? They've got a couple running backs been working hard, ready to get back into the groove.
I don't think that's even the main issue here. I think that Garrison's not even going to want to come back himself. He's got two things to look at that keeps him from making a lot of money. One is the new rule that's come out about rookies and the $2 million cap. And two, his knee. So I just foresee him going ahead and going and getting these things over with and out of the way. Go to the NFL, sign your contract, get that done, get your rookie status out of the way, and then go ahead and have the surgery, and then go ahead and rehabilitate and get ready for your NFL career. I mean, this guy's in his early 20s. He's got plenty of time.
How much money is this knee injury going to cost him? Do you have any idea?
I would think maybe no more than $500,000, I wouldn't think. But then that's a lot of money.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot to me anyhow. Jeff, you mentioned a couple other running backs that have worked hard to get into the picture. Why don't we talk a little bit about them?
Yeah, Terrell Davis, you know, last year he had more yards per carry than Garrison, and he only got a little bit of time, but he came in and did an admirable job for him. And then there's also the little Sterling Boyd, the little scat back who, as far as I'd read, that he was doing real well and was pushing Garrison for a little bit of time. And I think the guy's going to come around. He's had a year to rehabilitate and get back his shoulder injury. And I think the Bulldogs are going to be good at the running back. And I hate to see what happened to Garrison, but hopefully it'll be best for our university.
I got to see Sterling Boyd in one of the fall practices last year, and he was very impressive. He's about 180 pounds. Looks like Rodney Hampton the way he runs to me, but he's obviously about 20 pounds lighter. Unfortunately, he did have shoulder surgery here about a week ago, and he's going to miss all of spring practice, so hopefully he'll get back in uniform this fall.
Yeah, look forward to seeing him out
there. Another topic of interest to Georgia fans is the Georgia-Florida game in Jacksonville. There's been some articles in the paper recently about maybe switching that to a home-and-home series. Ty, what do you think?
Oh, well, Jeff, you know how I feel about that. I want the game to go home and home. I think this series in Jacksonville, first of all, I think the town of Jacksonville is a dump, and I don't think this city deserves to have this game. But it's costing, I think, the schools a lot of money. I think losing that potential home and home against a big intersectional rivalry like Southern Cal or Colorado really hurts you with television exposure, and you need exposure for recruiting. Recruiting is so important, and with the terrible high school academic situation here in the state of Georgia, Georgia and Georgia Tech both are going to have to go out of the state more and more, and you're going to have to promote yourself, your product, and you do that by television. And tying up one of your home games every other year down there in Jacksonville, I don't think is worth it.
All right, Ty, let me cut you off. We'll get back to that in a minute. I think we have a phone call. Caller, what's your name and where are you calling from?
Hey, Ty, this is George from Wilkesboro. How are you?
Hey, this is George. This is our basketball analyst up in North Carolina. He's our correspondent expert. He's going to report the Georgia Tech-Wake Forest game for us. George, go ahead.
I'll be headed over to Lawrence Joel Memorial Coliseum tomorrow to watch Wake Forest Demon Deacons play the underachieving team of the year in the ACC, I think, Georgia Tech. Wake Forest will try to win the game and stay a game behind the league leaders in the ACC, that being North Carolina and Florida State. Tomorrow I anticipate the Demon Deacons trying to go inside to Rodney Rogers. He's had a really big 2 weeks up here in Winston-Salem, and I don't see anybody from Georgia Tech being able to stop him inside. Defensively, Tech, who relied on the perimeter, the three-point shot, and their squeaker over Richmond, is really going to have to shoot well from the outside to get a win in Winston-Salem, and I frankly don't see it. Wake Forest is playing well, and I look for a big win tomorrow for the Demon Deacons here in Winston-Salem.
George, just name some of the teams that you think will go far in the tournament here coming up in March.
I've been able to watch the nation full of basketball this year, and the teams that are impressing me are all east of the Mississippi. I look for the Indiana Hoosiers, the Kentucky Wildcats, and North Carolina to really do well in the tournament. And I think two of those three teams, Indiana and North Carolina, will play very close to home in first-round games. Indiana will probably be sent to the Hoosier Dome. North Carolina, very good chance of being here in Winston-Salem for the first round in the East Regional.
Well, Dean gets his way again, getting home games there in North Carolina during the tournament, George.
Well, he will complain about having to take the bus ride over from Chapel Hill to Winston-Salem, but if they get through the ACC and find a way to win the tournament, they'll deserve a number one seed in the East. I don't see the regional committee sending North Carolina up to the Carrier Dome like they did 2 years ago, when North Carolina did indeed go to the Final Four.
I agree. Hey, buddy, thanks for the phone call.
All right, enjoy the show, guys. You're doing a great job.
Thanks.
George, thanks for the call. Ty, I don't think he gets out too often, does he? He did mention Indiana, and we wanted to hit on Indiana a little bit. They got a big game against Purdue this weekend.
Right, and I wanted to go back to that game last week they had against Michigan. And again, Indiana is a team I thought would be a Final Four team. This team's playing well. First of all, if you would have told me Michigan would have gone into Bloomington and shot 58% and 55% from three-point land, I would think, oh, my God, Bobby Knight's in a whole lot of trouble. Here it is. He got a redshirt freshman, Evans, coming off the bench, poured in 17 points, had the experienced senior Nova come in there and score 20, get us 20 from Cheney. And, hey, despite mediocre games from Damon Bailey and Alan Henderson, he was able to pull out another big win. And here it is. They've got another big game at home tomorrow, rather Sunday, against Purdue. And those guys went into Mackey Arena and beat those guys earlier in West Lafayette. And Indiana, I think, is just really going to be a hard team to beat at home. And I see them winning that game. I don't know if Indiana's going to lose another game in the Big Ten.
Jeff, what do you think?
Well, Ty, I agree. Indiana's looking real well. They've gone into Michigan. They've gone away. A good team is a sign that can go on the road and beat teams at home. Although I am partial to Michigan because I kind of like the Fab Five. I thought they pretty much won me over last year coming in and doing what they did. And I really feel that the Big Ten's got the best conference this year, and they're pretty much going to have the Final Four, 2 teams in the Final Four, and probably the national champion out of one of them.
Are the Fab Five having a little bit of a letdown this year, maybe?
I just think that the Fab Five is, that it's tough for them probably day in and day out to stay focused. The NBA on one side, and then you've got the college and everybody talking to them about one or the other. I think the guys will come together when it's showtime, and they'll get together and they'll play well.
Well, they were so young and experienced so much success as freshmen that it's probably going to be hard to top that. I guess you got to get yourself up every game, obviously.
Right, but at least they've been there, and they will know how to respond. I don't think that there's as much of a powerhouse as there was last year with Duke. Duke, everybody anticipated was going to be there. They just, I think Indiana's got the senior leadership with Cheney.
Okay.
And, of course, the general. He runs the show.
All right. You mentioned Duke. I'd like to talk about them here in a minute, but I think we have a phone call. Caller, what's your name and where are you calling from?
Jason from Atlanta.
All right.
I just wonder what you think about the Braves' chances this year, their new pitch and everything. I just wonder if y'all think that they could maybe go 3 times the World Series if possible.
All right, that's a valid question, Ty. I know you have an opinion on that.
Yeah, I do, and I think it's very possible that would happen. I've already picked the Braves to win the West. Here it is. You've lost Charlie, and losing Charlie hurts because you're going to lose 15 games, but you hope that Maddox can come in and pick up those 15 and get a few more. Also, you'd like to see the starting pitchers get a few more wins simply because I think the bullpen needs to come through this year for this club. Last year, they blew a lot of games and struggled a lot during the middle of the year. So hopefully the Braves, I don't know, they have so many guys out there just hoping to throw enough mud on the wall and hope something will stick and hope someone will come through and take over that closer job.
Mm-hmm. They picked up Jay Howell. Is he going to be able to handle it, Jeff?
I believe Jay's going to add a little bit, if nothing else, experience to some of the younger guys. Go in, let them know what they need to do, how to stay focused. Steve Bedrosian, definitely a good pickup. I think the Braves, John Sherholtz is committed to win, and he showed it going out and get Greg Maddox and maintaining, spending a little bit of money to keep the nucleus of the team together. Hopefully the Braves will get their time. it'll be this year. Three's a charm.
All right. So
All right.
we all agree that the Braves are going to win their third straight Western Division title then.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for the
Thanks
call.
for the
Keep
call.
watching.
Jason.
All right, still talking about the Braves a little bit. I think the key may be Mark Wohlers if he develops into the closer that we think he's capable of doing.
One thing I'd like to see Mark Wohlers do is get more control on his fastball. Wohlers has got a pitch that's 95 miles an hour, but he seems to fall behind on the count a little bit, and he doesn't have the precise accuracy with the fastball. He'll make it a little fat sometime. You can get away with that sometime if you got a let-up or a curveball that you can throw over, but he hasn't been able to do that so far. If he can get a little more precision with his fastball on the corners, or if he can develop a let-up or a curveball with Mazzoni and get it over, especially in the first pitch, he'll be dangerous. He'll be effective.
Yeah, those are the kinds of things that young pitchers learn as they go along. And he's definitely a young guy with a great arm, and I think he's going to develop into a top-notch closer, if not this year, probably next year. Then.
Well, let's hope he learns it.
All
Let's
right.
hope this year.
All right, back to basketball. We want to talk about North Carolina's going to be in Charlottesville. That's another big game this weekend.
Without a doubt, North Carolina is tied with Florida State for the lead in the ACC. Virginia just came through and had another big win over Duke. I mean, I never would have thought those guys would have swept them this year, but Virginia's playing really well. But that game was so important to North Carolina, and I just wonder how Virginia is going to be able to deal with North Carolina's depth. They've shown that depth factor helps them win big games.
Jeff, you an ACC fan?
Well, I guess I pull for the ACC a little bit. Having Georgia Tech around, you kind of get more on TV than you really like to see out of the ACC. But the Big Ten, I have to stick with the Big Ten. I'm more of a.
I think the less we see of Tech, the better off we are.
That's right. You see it, the Bulldogs.
All right, I think we have another call. Caller, what's your name and where are you calling from?
Hi, my name's Melissa. How you guys doing?
Hey, all right.
Melissa.
My question is, how do you guys think that Ronnie Gant's looking this year?
Ronnie Gant.
Gant? Oh, okay. Gant. Shoot, I think Gant is he's going to have to rebound and do better than what he did last year. Gant really struggled after the All-Star break. Personally, I think the Braves would like to see 25 home runs out of him and 35 stolen bases. And I think from there, it'll take care of itself.
All right, I know the Braves were disappointed with his output last year, and he might have even been on the trading block over the winter, but they re-signed him to a big contract here recently.
Yeah, they instilled a little bit into him and showed him that they cared. They upped his income. And what more can he ask for?
You can't ask for more than $3 million a year.
Yeah,
could
come
you?
out and produce a little bit and quit worrying about what's going on outside.
How is Deion Sanders going to figure into this the outfield puzzle here?
Oh, only Deion knows. That's a good question. I think Deion's definitely a great athlete, great talent. He can't do anything but good for the city. It's just tough that we've got him in two, major football city, major baseball city, and here we have Deion.
Bobby Cox has some decisions to make. He's got a couple of first basemen. There's always that option of bringing Sid Bream over to first base, and then wouldn't it be fun to have an outfield of Gant, Otis, and Deion out there? And you'd see a whole lot of speed. And the Braves really used their speed very effectively. I felt the World Series, that gave them a big advantage and kept them around. Deion just creates so many opportunities, and he creates so many problems for the other team and other pitchers that you just like to get him out there so often because he is just dangerous. I can't think of another way to describe Sanders. That is a dangerous player.
Mm-hmm. He's a unique athlete, and he's also helped by the fact that he plays both sports in Atlanta. I don't believe he'd be able to do both sports in separate cities.
No, not as easily as he has.
All right. I'd like to thank Melissa for the phone call, and let's get back to the phones. Caller, what's your name and where are you calling from? Hello? All right.
Hello.
Sounded like there was a baby in the background. Maybe they had to go do something there. Back to
show.
basketball. Ty, the Bearcats of Cincinnati having a big year.
They are, but they just had a critical loss on the road to Memphis State about a week or so ago, and then they had a close call, I believe, with Marquette. Cincinnati is going to have to this is a big game for Cincinnati. I mean, they were possibly looking at number 1 or 2 seed, being rated number 4 in the country. Now, if they lose to Arizona, and that could possibly knock them out of the top 10 and then cause them to have a number 3 or 4 seed, and that's going to be important to them. Also, this is a big game for Arizona. They're number 4 in the country right now. They had a big win over Arizona State Thursday night. I mean, they just killed these guys. And these out-of-conference games for Lute Olson are very important because out there in the Pac-10, where they're playing their games at 9, 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night, not too many people get to see them. and the Pac-10 does not get a whole lot of television exposure. This is very important for them.
Arizona's been pretty consistently a good ball club here, though, recently.
Oh, sure they have. I mean, Lute Olson always has great, talented players, and this year's no exception. I wish I could have seen them play more this year, but unfortunately, television regionalizes everything, and you have to see a lot of local games instead of national games.
All right, let's get back on the phones. Caller, your name and your question. Hello?
Hello.
Yes, you have a question.
Yeah, I'm a big Tech fan.
Okay.
And I just wanted to call and say what a banner year Tech recruiting. And they, out-recruited Georgia this year in the state, it looks like. And we got all our 20 commitments signed and sealed. And I'd just like to get your comments on that, because I know your caller's a big Bulldog fan. So give me your preference there.
All right, well, we thank you for your call and keep watching.
All right, thanks for the call.
I'd have to agree that Tech has had a banner year recruiting as compared to what they've done in the past.
You know, Jeff, what surprises me is that I don't think they're really great athletes outside of people like Derek Stigall from the state of Georgia. I'm, again, impressed with what they did outside of the state. I think they did well in the state of Florida, and they went over there to South Carolina and got Nathan Perryman, who was one of the top running backs over there. And, again, they get their few usual kids from the north. We saw some of those guys play in high school, and without a doubt, Stigall's a great player. Some of these others, with the speed that they have that they posted for him, I don't believe all of it, especially T.J. Johnson. I don't think he's a 4.5. I don't think he's close.
Mm-hmm. I think T.J. may be a little bit of a letdown for the Tech fans, but Stigall is a hell of a football player.
When he played against LaGrange his junior year and Rodney Hudson was out there playing in his senior year, I thought Hudson was the second-best quarterback on the field.
Mm-hmm. Jeff, you get to see any high school football?
Yes, Jeff, I get to go a little bit here and there. I think that Georgia Tech definitely went in and got some good players this year. The only thing I wonder about is that in the ACC, I think they were ranked, top 5th class or so, 5th or 6th, I think, in the ACC, and usually that's not a powerhouse football, so you just wonder how much clout that 20 has, really.
You're right. I think
Stigall.
when you factor in that Florida State had the best class of anybody ever, probably.
Yeah. Best team
okay,
in the
what's
country.
that?
Is the
Go ahead,
Florida
we didn't
State.
hear
Florida
you.
State's the best team in the country, and the ACC is just as powerful than the SEC.
I don't go for that.
No.
Disagree with
you
you
were
there,
3-3 in the bowl games. SEC was 5-1.
We would dominate y'all. Conference against conference would whoop every one of y'all states.
No, you didn't. You won 71% of your out-of-conference games. The SEC won 75%.
Head-to-head.
That's BS. You need to get
No,
some
that's the
nose.
fact. Read it.
How did Georgia and Georgia Tech turn out?
Yeah, that's all right. We'll be back. We're coming y'all's way next year.
All
Okay,
right.
we'll be looking forward to it.
The
And we
door's
beat you in
open.
basketball. Where's
Hey.
your basketball conference?
Hey,
Sweet conference.
y'all are a great basketball conference.
ACC's a powerhouse.
Keep looking in
Beat
the
up on
past.
each other. Go outside the conference. We dominate.
How many national championships have you won lately in football?
Well, we're all around. Baseball, football, and basketball.
Okay, we'll see.
All right, well, let's not argue all night. We do appreciate your call, though.
All
Keep
right, go
watching.
Jackets.
Walker.
All right, back to basketball. Where were we? Talking about Cincinnati?
Yeah, we had just talked about Cincinnati and Arizona.
All right. Well, let's get to the top 10. Are there any surprises this year?
Well, I think one surprise is Duke from the ACC.
Yeah,
I think they're going to fall out of the top 10. They've fallen on some hard times. And I tell you what, they are going to miss Billy McCaffrey badly, the guy who transferred to Vanderbilt. If they had him, I would think they would be a Final Four team. But they don't, and they're not. And when they have injuries, Hill got hurt, they're in trouble.
No senior leadership this year.
Well, Hurley is a great ball player, and he has done a whole lot of good things for them. But, again, I think Duke is really facing a problem with depth, and losing McCaffrey really hurt them.
All right. Well, you mentioned McCaffrey, and he's at Vanderbilt now, and he seems to have pulled them up by the bootstraps.
Of all people, Vanderbilt, to do what they've done this year, definitely impressive.
That may be a surprise top 10 right there. All right, I think we have another phone call. Caller, your name and where are you calling from? Hello?
Hello?
Yes, do you have a question?
Just wanted to make a comment. I graduated from Clemson. I worked for the University of Georgia for a while, so I get into this ACC-SEC deal a lot.
Okay.
I don't think the ACC is as good a football conference as the SEC. However, I think they may be second best. The man asked how many national championships has the ACC won lately. And before Alabama's this year, the ACC had won 2 since the last time the
think
And,
they've won 1.5 if you want to look at it.
Yeah, I still look at that as a partial.
I think it's very comparable. I don't think they're as good as the SEC right now, but I think they're second best. I don't think people need to just look down on them just because it's the ACC in football.
Well, I think the ACC is definitely coming up in football, and that's simply because of Florida State. But I still think some of the other programs there still have a little catching up to do. And I think their Clemson team is loaded with talent. But I'll be honest with you, I think Ken Hatfield's on the hot seat. And losing to South Carolina, I mean, that's just bad news if you're a Clemson coach. And if that keeps happening a couple of times in a row, those people at IPTAY, they're just not going to put up with it. What do you think?
I agree. I went to a number of games this year in Clemson, and the thing about that team is, I think they obviously had some talent to lose to Florida State by 4 points and to outscore Virginia 29-0 in one half. And what has to scare you is the fact that that team really didn't get any better from the first day to the very last day. In fact, I think they got worse. And that South Carolina game that you're talking about, I mean, there was absolutely nothing to cheer about. If we had a guy return an interception for a touchdown, if it wasn't for that, we couldn't even score a touchdown on our own home field against South Carolina. And Ken Hatfield's very much on a hot seat. And I think 5 and 6 next year, and Ken Hatfield will be a part of Clemson's past. And I really have a feeling they're going to have a hard time doing better than 5 and 6. I really do, when you consider the fact that they lost to a Maryland team by 30 points that had won 2 games all year. So there's some serious problems there. They're going to lose some people to graduation. And if he doesn't manage to go at least, I think, 8 and 3, I think he'll have to be gone. I really do.
I think we all agree it's
Anyway,
probably the worst Clemson team that we've seen in the last dozen or so years. Anyhow.
Yeah, I think in 1980 they went 6 and 5, and that's the worst year I can remember them having for a long time. Clemson is that's going to be an interesting team to look at this year. They are so much different at home than they are on the road. Here it is. He was talking about they lost to Maryland and lost badly. But then here it is. Here was North Carolina. They cruised into Death Valley, and Clemson just killed those guys. They scored 40 points on them. And that is a really difficult team to beat at Death Valley.
I think Clemson's sort of getting lost in the shuffle here. The times have moved ahead, and they haven't picked up a passing game like other teams have. They're still living in the Stone Ages, so to speak.
No, I think, and that goes back to Ken Hatfield. And not only that, when they played Georgia Tech this year, I felt that Clemson would just beat these guys by keep running the ball at them and at them and at them over and over again. And in the fourth quarter, they did that, and they were having success, but it was too late. They fell behind, and when they fall behind, they're going to lose more than likely. But I will agree with them on one thing. That basketball conference in the ACC, hands down, they've shown the past couple of years in the tournament that they were head and shoulders above everyone. This year, though, we'll have to wait and see. I really like how some of the Big Ten clubs are playing.
All right, back to the phones we go. Caller, you're on the air. Hello, do you have a question?
Hello?
Yes,
Hi.
do you have a question?
Yes, I'd like to know who the first quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons was.
Oh, a trivia question.
Oh, well,
Little
was
trivia.
that,
Anybody have an idea?
Randy Johnson?
Randy Johnson sure was.
That's right.
All right.
All right.
Yes.
What do we win? Thanks for the call. Keep watching.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right. Let's get back to basketball. We have to ask the big question for the local fans here. Is Tech going to make the tournament, Jeff?
I'm not real sure there. I believe it's going to really depend on the next 2 games they play. I mean, if they lose one more, I really think they're going to be out of it. I don't think that – I mean, to me, this year, Tech's really been so, Richmond coming in, beating them not Richmond, but Charleston, yeah. Carolina coming in, beating them. Wake Forest coming in, beating them. They're getting beat at home on their own turf. It's not really a team to me. Of the 64, though, it's just so broad, you never know.
It's hard to imagine they would
could
miss
slip.
the tournament. But,
Right.
There was an article in the paper today by Thomas Stinson. He mentioned that Tech really only has one sure win left on their schedule.
Well,
They've only got 14 wins right now.
They do
13
have some
wins.
tough games coming up. I tell you what, if there's a game that they could go back and grab, I don't know if it's that Charleston game. I think it's a Clemson game. I think that game really hurt them badly, and so did Wake Forest. Wake Forest just really came into Atlanta and killed them.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't even close. And then I think they still have a home game left with Florida State. They did go up to Charlottesville earlier and win, but I don't know if they still have a home game left with Virginia. But they do have to travel to Clemson and play those guys.
Right.
And so Georgia Tech, I think, is going to need 18 wins with their schedule. And then they still have the ACC tournament coming up.
Yeah, they could squeak in with the ACC tournament. It's always a good.
Yeah, get a win or two from that, they'll be okay.
Yeah.
How many teams from the SEC will make it?
I'm looking at 6. 3 from the East and 3 from the West. I think you're going to have Kentucky, Vanderbilt, and Florida. And on the other side, I think you're going to have Arkansas, Alabama, and LSU. LSU already has 17 wins.
Yeah. LSU is definitely a surprise this year. Did real well.
I noticed you're counting the Dogs out. Are they out of it?
Well, Georgia needs 17 wins. Right now, they have 11. I would be happy to take an NIT. If they could give me an NIT right now, I would take it. But this is what they're going to have to do. They play at Kentucky tomorrow. That's a loss. But then their other 4 games are winnable. Home against Vanderbilt, home against South Carolina, on the road with Tennessee, and what is that final game? I don't know. They have
Maybe
one
Ole
more.
Miss?
No. I'll think of it in a minute.
No, they won't be playing.
But
We'll be off the air in a minute, though. Won't it?
But those 4 games are winnable. And if they do that and then win 2 games in the tournament, then they'll have 17 wins with a very difficult schedule that included Georgia Tech, UCLA, and Kansas.
All right, let's take our last phone call here. Caller, you're on the air.
Yeah, my name's Nick, and I'm calling from Atlanta.
All right.
All right?
And I heard you picked the Braves to win the West. Who do you think is going to win the other divisions in baseball?
All right, that's a good question.
Good question. This year, I think the Mets will be one of the teams to look at in the East. And then on the other side, I think Toronto is still a strong ball club. And then out in the West, I still don't know yet.
That's almost a
I
toss-up.
just don't know. I think you might see a surprise there this year.
Yeah, I think Chicago, the White Sox, are going to be a good team to watch over in the West.
Right? And
Looks
then you
looks
never
like
do
Bo
know.
may be back.
I personally don't want to count Oakland out with Tony La Russa.
Well, Oakland's lost a few players, including a couple of starting pitchers, so that's going to hurt them.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to disagree with you about the Mets. I think Montreal is going to take that division.
And I like St. Louis, so it's
Hey, I picked the Cardinals last year.
Oh well, let's go anyway.
All right, before we go off the air, Ty, I know you wanted to mention something about Phoenix.
Right, that team is just super. I wanted to talk about them last week. Here it is. They're in a strong league, the Pacific Division, and they're 6 games up. And when they got Charles Barkley in the offseason, I thought the championship would reign in the Valley of the Sun right there. I felt that was a big part, getting him to play with Tom Chambers inside. But then they made great acquisitions. They got, of course, Marley on the team already, and then KJ. And then they went out and got Danny Ainge right away from Portland, who they contend straight up with. And let me just give you an example of how effective these guys are. The Hawks played them the other night. Phoenix shot 56%. And that's players like that, getting them on the team will enable you to do things like that. And then I haven't even mentioned the main surprise in Dumas, the small forward, who's extremely talented. I mean, Barkley sits there and looks at him and says, I'm not even near the talent this guy is. And he showed it last night, scoring 32 points.
Yeah, Phoenix definitely came around. They made the right moves, and they're going to give Chicago a run. I still like the Bulls and their unity once they get it together.
Well, Phoenix has lost 1 game at home this year. It was to the Bulls, but that was early. So that'll be really interesting to see how that turns out.
Might have a good series.
But then I'd like to see how San Antonio does in the playoffs out there as well, because they've been another great story.
Good point.
All right, well, I don't want to cut you guys off, but they're giving us the wrap-up sign, so let's go ahead and close the show. We'd like to thank all of you for tuning in tonight. I think Melissa will be back next week. She did call us tonight, so at least she's watching. Thanks for being with us.